Good morning, everybody. Good morning, all the members in the house. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, it's nice to see you. Nice to see you. I think there is going to be this hand raiser option available for you somewhere. Maybe just quickly raise a hand, wave a hi, everyone. Okay, nice to see all you members in the house. The current time is 4:28. Okay, the 4:30 members are available. The time right now is 8:01. Okay, chalo, let's get started. Let's get started for today. It's going to be really very important session. Before we got started, we asked a quick poll here. So everyone, could you please update your poll status here? How many of you have some prior knowledge of Spring Boot? Okay, so simple three answers: yes, or you're aware but not very hands-on, or maybe you are into the not aware category. Okay, because today we are going to get into Spring Boot related, the basics required for really building up the application. Okay, so chalo, nice to see all the things. Okay, and currently as of now what we see is there are 40% members out of 236 members have marked their poll, like 262. 40 members are yes, 42 are like not hands-on, and there is less percentage saying not aware. But don't worry, as part of today we will focus on all the things. Chalo, let's get started. Already my screen is shared. Furthermore thing, guys, we are going to maintain all the session notes as part of this link. So week one related all the material. For example, yesterday we conducted the day one. So whatever was there in the notepad, we have covered it here. Plus today also, while we will be taking sessions, I will be writing everything into notepad so that notes act like a quick referral to you. Maybe in 5 minutes, you can scroll through it and relive the entire session back again. After that, the recording will be available on YouTube. You can watch it again also. Okay? It's going to be practical session today. So fine, let's quickly publish it and let's get down to today's topic. Okay, chalo, let's get going. Okay, team, fine. Let's try to understand a few things. There you go. In the current times, guys, web application is like very common. Like almost every industry, every business needs some web application, right? So there has to be a website or something which is accessible over internet. So basically we are all programmers. So we are into this Java or whatever technology, right? So we choose a technology and we are developers in that particular field. Now point is, as a developer, we need to build a web application so that it can be accessed over internet by the customers. That's it. So this is how majority of the projects are. Build a web application which can be accessible over internet. So right now you might know core, advanced Java, whatever. Next, you're aware of nice about Spring Boot also, like 80% are aware of it. So nothing but we need to build a web application. Currently we know, let's say Java, which includes basically, let's say core Java, advanced Java, some of the guys are aware. Okay, so these two things are there. Now, simple question comes is, using the simple programming language that we have, okay, how do you build a web application? Okay, a web application is something which can be accessed over internet. Nothing but right now we are in the Zoom webinar or we type chat GPT. So these are all some web applications which is running somewhere, and from browser we access it. So our next main aim here is how do we build a web application using simple programming language like, let's say, Java? And automatically it comes dekho, if we open a paintbrush, just have a look here. Okay, so this is the core programming knowledge that you have, which includes all your for loops, while loops, the basics of programming, writing classes, methods, oops, and all of that. You write everything here using a simple plain Java, and now we need to make it into a web application. Okay, so that means your system or your code should have now better capability. It should be accessible over internet. Okay, And that's how it is. Now just try to understand, in order to convert your simple Java application into a web application, something which will be accessible over internet, some additional piece of coding is going to be required. Okay, now let's assume this is this additional piece of coding. Okay, now you understand from client perspective, okay, whenever client is coming in an organization, client says ki build as a website or web application so we can do business. So please understand, first thing to note is, using your simple Java, we write code and all that, but in order to make it a web application, something additional is required. Okay, and understand from the client perspective, they are saying ki develop the web application so we can do business. Nothing but they want to develop functional application. For example, what is a functional application? Let's say it's a bank. So bank is having, let's say, login, fixed deposit, money transaction, those kind of use cases, right? Transfer money, IMPS, and instant or NEFT, whatever, those kind of transactions. Receive money, send money, account management. Nothing but clients, when they are coming to any IT company, their focus is develop the functionality. Okay, and now what we realized is, we want to develop functionality because if we don't develop that, clients will be like, what are you wasting time in? But the simple thing is, you need to convert your Java application into web application. If you tell your clients, okay, currently we are doing additional piece of code. Okay, let's say you tell your clients, currently we are doing this additional piece of code by which our application will become a web application, and then we will start working upon your functionality. Clients will not be okay with that. So please understand, using simple core Java, we cannot really make web application. In order to make a web application on top of your core Java, something additional is required. But on the other side, the client requirement is build us functionality. If we tell the clients we are spending our time in converting our simple Java application into web application, which might take few days or weeks of time, clients would be unhappy. Okay, clients will be like, why we are giving you money for working on functionality, why are you spending your time on these other things? We want you to quickly develop functionality. And that is where a need comes. Okay, we need something ready-made, easy to apply, which converts Java application into an web application. As simple as that. We need something ready-made, easy to apply. Matlab, we should not spend too much time there. Clients should not have any problems. And that is where we need something like that. And that is where in the world there are web frameworks. So if you really check it out, yesterday we shared this roadmap.sh. As part of this roadmap.sh, we opened, let's say, Control F, Java. In Java, if you really get down to here, there is something called as web frameworks. Okay, and that is where using the simple Java basic can be achieved, but in order to make it a web application, we need some web frameworks. And the beauty part about this roadmap.sh is, if you click here, it even explains you some of the things. Okay, web frameworks are tools with pre-written code ready-made that act like a skeleton and which can be reused to create an application by simply filling your code. And the thing was, just understand, it is pre-written code, something ready-made. And if we have that, we can quickly reach to the state where we will have the full web application, so that we can focus on developing functionality, because the client is paying the company for functional development. It is as simple as that. And there are multiple web framework softwares like Spring, SpringBoot, Play, Spark. And in any programming language that you go, Python, Node, let's say .NET or any other thing, they would have their own web frameworks for building web application. Okay, it is as simple as that. So guys, is this point clear? Okay, is this point clear? Okay, maybe Sometimes just mark it as done. We will give this video later. Just comment it as done in Q&A section. Let's see if it is rolling. If you got this point, simple, basic, right? Just comment it as done. Okay, very good. Right, we can see the chats rolling. Simple. First conclusion, we need to convert our Java application into web application. That needs special efforts. Client is not paying us to put that special effort. And for that reason, we need something ready-made, something fast. And that is where in the market, web framework softwares are there. And one of the popular one in the current time is Spring Boot. Okay, okay, fine. Now, just understand these things. IT industry is a pretty smart industry. Okay, that means it keeps improving. Okay, what people will do is, let's say for example, earlier Spring was developed. Spring Boot is developed on top of Spring, guys. So please understand. Okay, so Spring Boot is an open source microservice based Java framework. Okay, so it is microservice based Java framework, and Spring Boot is developed on top of Spring. We will get into a separate day where we will speak more about Spring and Spring Boot and the theory part about that. Today we want to jump into practical so that you can also do your first Spring Boot application setup and really set it up in your IDE, work with it. Okay, so we will keep the topic like that. But just understand, IT industry is a smart industry. Over a period of time, we keep improving things. If there is a problem in the old things, we improve it. And that is where from time to time, new software comes, new framework comes, and there is always new versions where things are made better than the previous version. Okay, this is what it is. We always make things better. Now, as a result of that, as the world is growing, we are realizing that a lot of projects are getting value for making something microservice based. Microservice architecture is really becoming very popular, and not just from right now. It's like since past 5+ years, many projects are adapting to microservice, and nowadays you will find very common conversations, hey, in our projects we are doing microservices. That's a very common practice. Now what was happening is, as the boom of microservice was growing high, some of the Java experts, they thought, hey, our current Spring that we have, there is a scope that we make it even more better, faster, robust, okay, so that we can really accommodate or build microservices quickly with our Spring frameworks. And that is where they said, chalo, let's launch something called a Spring Boot, which is more faster, dynamic, less work to do, and more impactful. And they created this, which is becoming a default way. If you want to implement microservices in Java, people are by default going to Spring. Okay, Spring Boot. So just understand, here's the next conclusion. As the world evolves, frameworks will keep coming. Right now, Spring Boot is doing good. You never know, in 2 years from now, something else might come and some smart brains of the world might develop something new. So expectation as a Java developer or a programmer is we should be ready to learn and adapt to anything. So currently Spring Boot is there. So we should learn, adapt, fine. Maybe in 2 years, if the market has something else, we should have the ability to even learn that. Okay? So that's what it is. Microservice is very trending in the current times. Many projects are preferring to go ahead with microservice architecture. In this project also, in this internship, we will work on microservices and develop it via Spring Boot. So yes, Spring Boot is a nice way for developing microservices, and that's where it is really picking up in the market. Okay? That's what it is. Now comes the question, like if I want to run end-to-end web application, let's think about the journey using Spring Boot. Okay, how do you really build any application which is a web application in Spring Boot, end-to-end journey? Okay, so before we really launch into code, if you have this understanding, it will really make it nice for you. So just try to understand. Okay, I'm removing this. First, we need to have knowledge of our basic Java. So fine, let's say we all have Java knowledge here. Okay, Java programming knowledge. Next, on top of this basic Java programming knowledge, we need to add this layer of Spring Boot. By this way, together our application will become like a web application. So this plus this. Okay. Now this becomes a simple web application. Now we need to ask this question, okay, how do you convert? Okay. And what exactly is now Spring Boot? If we are saying we need to mix Spring Boot into our Java project, what exactly that means? Let's quickly brush up our simple JDBC knowledge, guys. Okay. What happens? We write program using simple core Java, creating classes, methods, and all that, right? On top of that, if we want to connect to database, let's say Oracle or MySQL or anything, what we do? We use jar file provided by, let's say, MySQL or Oracle, guys. ojdbc.jar or MySQL connector.jar. Nothing but understand. If your simple application wants to get bigger capability, other ready-made code will be supplied as jar file. You add this in your code and you get additional capability. So core Java code with simple jar file, now you are able to get ability to talk to database. Similarly, in this application, on top of your basic Java programming skills, if you want to add Spring Boot, it is nothing but some set of jar files. As simple as that. Maybe one, maybe 100. But some jar files. Why? Because we are saying ready-made. We are always saying, okay, we need something ready-made. Ready-made matlab pre-written code should be there. That pre-written code, how will you have access? Is by simple, that code will be shared with us somehow in the form of jar files. Multiple jar files will be available. So what we need to do? We need to have all these jar files, which represents a Spring Boot kind of system, and then put it into our project, and then our application becomes a Spring Boot application working, and which is nothing but a web application. Guys, this point is important. Simply, how do you transform your application into a web application is you need to add more jar files, which is having predefined code in your project. If you have that, automatically your application capability converts into becoming a web application. Okay, guys, is this clear? Just comment a yes in the chat. Okay. Okay, just type a few yeses, guys. Okay, Rushikesh says yes. Sonal says yes. Nice. Mega Anil. Simple. Don't complicate. Okay, let me turn on AC. It's getting hot here. Okay, chalo. Thanks, Arvind, Anil, for confirming. Okay, so this is what we require. Now they go understand how will. So we are clear with this point. Key simple Java programming. On top of that, we want to add some jar files, which will make it Spring Boot application, which is a web application. Now comes the question. Okay, in our, let's say, previous example of JDBC, how did you add the jar file? Think about it. One simple way was maybe go to internet, search for that jar file, download it, put it in your class path, and then your application got that capability, and then writing some code which was able to talk to database. One simple approach is go to internet, get the jar file, add it to your class path, and then you can use it. Now you need to understand. Spring Boot is not one jar file. Okay, and Spring Boot is lot of code. Maybe there might be around 50 plus jar files. Jar file, somebody I think asked a question, what is a jar file? Jar file is nothing but like a zip kind of thing, you can assume. Okay, like inside, let's say if you name abc.jar file, this will have internally, let's say 200 Java classes. They just group these classes together and say a jar file is there. Okay, I think Java archive, something like that, full form is there, but just check it on internet. But it's a jar file. Multiple classes code will be available. They group it together and say one abc.jar. Now just understand, if you want to add Spring Boot capability in your application, then ultimately it comes like there might be 50 plus jar files, 100 plus jar files. And do you know this? There could be a case, okay, you write this kind of, let's say, abc.jar, and internally for running some logic of abc, it needs a pqr.jar. And pqr internally might need an xyz.jar. Okay, what does this mean? There might be dependencies between these jar files. Now the point is, client is saying, okay, bhai, develop the project as quickly as possible, and we are playing around with jars, dependencies, and how to do what to do. So IT industry realized we need to simplify this approach. And we cannot one by one manually. How can you find 100 jar files manually? It's not really practical. So we need, guys, whenever there is pain in the IT industry, there will be some tool, some software for easing that pain. Okay, there will be process or tool or a software to improve that pain. And right now this is a pain. Okay, for making your application, Spring Boot application, you need to add maybe 50 plus jar files, 100 plus jar files. There might be dependency, and client is saying don't spend any time on all these things. So we need a tool and a better way for managing all these dependencies. Let's call it, let's name it dependencies. We are dependent upon all of these things. So terminology we are using it at dependencies. And that is where in the market, there are things like, how do you have all these jars and all these dependencies with you, chain of dependencies, as easily as possible? And that is where in the market, there are tools called as build tools. Okay. And when you look back here onto this roadmap.sh, this is nothing but the build tool. Tools like Gradle is there in the market, Maven is there in the market, Ant is there in the market, and then there are some more tools as well. But just try to understand that any tool will do the similar kind of work of getting all of these dependencies for you, putting it into your project. And guys, let's accept this thing. It's not manually practically possible to download 100 jars every single time, manage these dependencies without build tool. It's not practically possible to do all these things. And that is where we need some build tool. And let's go back to our diagram. We need a build tool in order to manage this dependency. Here is where comes our game. We need a build tool for managing this dependency. And one of the very popular and since long time people are using this build tool, and the name is Maven. So a lot of community support is there. Lot of benefits are there with Maven. Almost all the dependencies comes with Maven configuration. So the conclusion so far is, we will use Maven in our Java application and add all the required dependencies of Spring Boot to make it a web application. As simple as that. We will use Maven, okay, and add the Spring Boot dependencies in our Java application, and that will transform our application into a web application. Let me quickly write down this thing. Okay, we would use Maven as a build tool to add all Spring Boot dependencies to our Java application. and transform it into web application. Okay, fine. इतना ही तो करना है. Okay, guys, is it clear? Is it clear? Simple hai. Things are very simple. It might just be new. Okay, just give a quick yes in the chat. Okay, let's see. Okay, awesome. Okay, simple hai guys. IT समझना है ना, very simple है. Try to keep things simple, don't complicate it. Automatically life is going to be good. Okay, Revna Kosuru, very nice, very nice. Okay, chalo, focus back. If you want to learn, everything is possible. Okay, now fine. Now comes, let's say, using these two things. You have done this. Your application is ready. Now comes the second important thing. Guys, you all know basics of Java, right? Basics of programming. Everybody knows it. You write Java code, A.Java. First, what you do is you compile. Then you execute. Compile and then execute. Then only the application runs. So if you made a web application, you will need somehow to compile this thing. So these are your next two steps. You will need somehow to compile these things and then to execute it. Okay. Now, let me simply ask you a question. I think many of you will be aware of this, right? One way of compiling and executing Java is simple. Java C A.Java and then typing Java A. Right? A simple Java class ऐसे हो जाता है, right? I think everybody will know this. Okay. There is another way of doing it, which is by executable jar file. Let's see how many of us know this. In basic core Java itself, these things come. Okay, you can create an executable jar file, okay, myjar.jar, which internally will have a.class, and you can use a command jar, okay, or java space -jar, and then maybe myjar.jar. Okay, let me quickly have a look at that command. Yes, this is how it is. Java space -jar my.jar. So first, yes, whatever you compile, you put it into a jar file. There will be some command by which you put it into a jar file. This jar file will have a.class, and then you can use something like this command, and also you can run your Java application. Okay, let me quickly add a poll. How many of you was aware of this thing, right? Executable jar file. Okay, like java space -jar and then jar file.jar. Just say yes, no. You need to know multiple options, right? Okay, just quickly mark your state here, guys. Go to the poll, quickly do it. Let's take a few seconds. Okay, 239 members, 270 members. So if you see 50-50 here, okay, it's 50-50. So from 400 members, 50-50 ko pata hai. Now, fine. There are two ways to do it. Right now you learned. All those who are not aware, right now you learned it. Maybe quickly make a note about these things. It will really add more knowledge, because lot of small points will be discussed here, which you might not be aware. Okay. Okay, so there are two ways. One is simple. Okay, let's finish this thing. Okay, let's finish this. Focus back on the session. One way is compile it, make it like this. The another way is compile it, put it into jar file and execute it like this. This is called as executable jar file. Okay. Now the point is key for big projects. Okay. The right way to really bundle things is why go ahead using jar approach. There are other ways of packing also. Instead of jar, we can create a .var file, web archive. But with Spring Boot, people are saying ki bhai, create a jar file only. We will discuss more details about it. Okay, step by step lete. Not just jar, there is another way by which we can put this all together. That way is by var file also. Okay, but the highly recommended practice, the developers of Spring is also recommending, create a jar file which will represent your entire code of this web application. Okay, and then execute that jar file. So our next approach is pretty simple. We need to create a jar file which represents this entire code. So that's our next step. Create a jar file. Let's say my application.jar. As simple as that. So we will be next creating this jar file. And after that, our approach is execute this jar file. As simple as that. Now comes, how do we create this jar file which is having your code plus Spring related code and all of these things? Now, thoda if you really brainstorm here, guys, if you just think about it for a moment, you would realize that we use Maven to add all these dependencies. That means Maven is really capable of doing a lot of things. Using the same Maven, we can bundle these things together to create this Java file, which we will execute later. So the point here is, for creation of this jar file, we will again be using Maven itself. Creation of executable jar file, we can do that using Maven. Now point is, guys, in order to work with Maven, we need to know Maven commands. I'll just give you one command. Don't get into too much details. One command, mvn package. That's it. This is one command. If you run this command on this full project, your project plus Spring project, so mvn is for Maven package. And then once you do this thing, it basically bundles this together as a jar file called as, let's say, output of this command will be, okay, myapp.jar. As simple as that. Okay, the way here you do a compile, then you get a.class and then you execute it. So there is another way of creating a jar file with simple Java. With Maven, along with dependencies, it will create. So here also we will use Maven mvn package. Okay, now comes कि इसको execute कैसे करना है. Guys, please understand this. Okay, in order to run web application, so regular application, so we can just start like that. But in order to execute web application, you need web server. You can execute web application in web server, or to be more specific, people call it as HTTP server. That means directly nahi kar sakte. You need to really have something called as a server. And in this server, you can actually execute this. Okay. Now, whatever, if the output was var file, you can deploy this var file into server and it will work. And if the output is jar file, you can execute it like that also. Now, there are multiple servers available in the market. One of the popular one is Tomcat. Very common. Tomcat server. Okay. How many of you have worked with Tomcat? Just type write Tomcat. Okay, just type Tomcat here. Okay, there are Tomcats. Nice. Okay, there are multiple people who are aware of Tomcat. Very good. That's what basics say. Today we want to keep it because there are people who are at a very beginning state. So we need to start from there, because if you don't understand this, how will you really work on the project? So we need to get it to the step number 1 also. Okay, very good, guys. Fine. So now just understand. Dekho, we need a server. Tomcat is very popular, and in the IT industry, many projects are using Tomcat. And using Tomcat server, you can actually execute this web application. Now, you know what is happening? It is so much important to have a Tomcat, to have a server, that Spring Boot team decided कि कुछ नया करते हैं. Okay, for executing you need a mandatory server. Without server you cannot execute your web application. Spring Boot is for developing these kind of web applications. So what they said is, by default, guys, this is important, focus here. By default, we will give you embedded Tomcat in your Spring Boot application. Okay, that means, what does this mean? If you look at this diagram, we said a lot of Spring Boot related dependencies we can add using Maven. What Spring Boot team is saying, ki, along with these dependencies, we will give you Tomcat also, so that you don't have to explicitly set up Tomcat with you. And that is nothing but terminology here called as embedded Tomcat. By default, we will give you that embedded Tomcat in your Spring application. So along with all these jars, it is already giving it. Okay, so our work is simple. We just need to execute this jar file, okay, using some command like this: java space -jar my-app.jar. If we do like that, first it will start Tomcat, and then it will run our web application there. So we don't have to separately set up Tomcat, because along with the Spring Boot dependencies, Tomcat is going to be available like an embedded Tomcat with us, embedded, plugged inside. And using that itself, if you just run the code like this, it will automatically be able to run the application. As simple as that. Okay, so guys, this is how it is. You don't have to have any magical miracle to understand this. It is pretty straightforward. If you run like this, java space -jar my-app.jar, automatically it is going to be available here. Okay, guys, is this clear? Simple, eh? Simple, straightforward. Okay, just quickly do it. Just quickly put it here, guys. Okay, nice. Okay, the counters are rolling here. And guys, in between whatever questions you get, right, you can just put it on ChatGPT. All those answers are there. So you don't need a human being to solve your problems. Internet is having that capability. Switch from student mentality to a professional mentality. Learn this art of addressing your own problems using internet, because this is how at work it is going to happen. Okay, okay, fine, chalo, all these things said and done. Okay, now next thing, guys, let's focus back again. Abhi, we want to do these things end to end. So as part of today's session, what are we going to do here? Okay, first we need to have some way of coding this application, right? So we will be coding this application using some IDE. Okay, for example, Eclipse, STS, any IDE is fine. We are going to use STS. It's given by Spring team itself, and we are doing some Spring application. So I'm choosing STS. Or I'll give you this link also. You can download from there, take the latest version, start working with that. So IDE, we will use STS. In IDE, we will be coding. Whether you are aware of IDE is not aware, no problem. We will learn those things here. So first, using an IDE, we will be coding. Next, we will be using Java 17. Okay. Next, we will be using Maven in the project for adding all these dependencies and everything. Okay. Now, first, we will use these things to build our first. Now, as part of the rest of the session, we are going to be here till 12. Okay, we still have 1 hour 20 minutes to go for the session. So first we will be building our Spring Boot application, and for building that we will need these tools. As simple as that. Once we will build it, then we will run it locally and test it. That is second step that we will be doing today. Okay, third step we will be setting it up in AWS and execute it there. This is what is the scope of the rest of the session that we have, so that we can really see the feel ki how a simple web application actually even runs in production, and what a developer is supposed to do in the local machine versus what it is supposed to do in a AWS, and an end-to-end journey we will be looking at this. Okay, and all these things, guys. Okay, so out of my 14 years of experience, I'm trying to keep it really simple, okay, even beginners can pick it up and quickly get down with the game. Okay, so okay, chalo, let's start with this. Okay, guys. So ready for this, guys? Ready for this? Just type a yes in the chat. Project require, guys, they go. You need to understand technically plus project. 2 weeks are for that. Today's topic is learning the basics. So we will not jump into a project and all that knowledge. We have 2 weeks for completing KT. So we will not be switching here and there context. Everything is one by one. Okay? Project ka, there will be some other day. There we will discuss the project. Okay, fine, guys. Chalo, let's gear up then. Let's gear up for this. Okay. Abhi, guys, देखो. Point is, think from a client perspective. Client wants ki developer should build the application as quickly as possible, because client is saying develop functionality, man, don't spend time here and there. Client wants ke fatafat build functionality. Now, in order to do that, how quickly we can build or add these dependencies and do all of these things and make a web application? What people said is, let's simplify this life. Why to start from scratch? Let's simplify this life. And in the real world came some tools, something called as a website. Okay, start.spring.io. This is one way of starting a Spring related project. Okay, let's have a look here for a moment. It is called as using Spring initializer, because client is saying develop quickly, developer is saying give me something ready-made easily, so some tool is required, otherwise it might take more time. We want to simplify life. Even a fresher from college not knowing Spring can work on Spring within like 5-10 minutes. That's how easy and that's how fast it should be. Otherwise people will not even use it, right? So this is what it is. Okay, there is a website called as start.spring.io. I will put this URL here. Using this, we can build an application pretty quickly. How exactly it happens? Just focus here. First of all, we need to decide what kind of build tool we want to use, because all the dependencies, everything will come with Maven only. Otherwise, it's not going to be useful. So we will choose Maven. Next, what programming language? Java. So it is having support for multiple languages, multiple tools. So yes, we will use Maven. We will use Java. Okay. Next, the latest stable version of Spring Boot currently is 3.2.3. So basically, all these are versions. Anything which is not having anything written in bracket is the stable latest version. So here M1 is there, snapshots is there. We can ignore that. The latest stable is 2.3.2. So let's choose the latest one for our testing purpose. Okay. Next, these are some things we will understand what this is. This is required for Maven to do some work. We will understand that. But in the end, we spoke about packaging, right? In this diagram, okay, we want to convert it into something so that we can execute. So this tool is providing two options. Do you want to convert that into a jar or var? Recommended approach is jar file. So we choose jar here. Okay. Now, if you choose jar, Tomcat is going to be given internally to you. You can execute it. And then which version of Java to use. As simple as that. Okay. Now, this is the basic selection. Just 30 seconds ke andar anybody can do this, right? Maven, Java, latest version. We will understand this box, choosing a jar file, choosing a 17 version. Okay. Now comes, okay, we are going to use Maven in the project. And if you remember our early explanation that we said, all these Spring Boot related jars, we use some term called as dependencies. Our application is dependent on that. If you see here, Spring Initializer. It is saying add dependencies. Nothing but now with this, these guys will give you some starting project. If you do a generate here, you will get some starting project and you can straight away start coding on top of that project. You don't have to write everything from scratch. These guys will create some project folder for you, give you that, and you just start working on top of that. And guys, now how do you do that? Is you simply add Spring Boot related dependencies for this. For example, you need to simply do this thing. Guys, click on add dependency. We want to add Spring Boot dependencies. Click on add dependency. There are multiple things here. Just type web. I want to give web capability to my Spring Boot application. So I just dependency name is web and I choose this. Okay. And look at the explanation. Build web, include RESTful applications using Spring MVC, uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. Basically, for creating anything in the web application level, you just need to add the web dependency and you will get all of the internally. It might have a lot of other dependencies, but if you just use the term web, you will get all of that. And then it will create a project structure for you, which is nothing but like a web application. As simple as that. So our next step was you fill up that data. Okay, go to Spring.io, fill up data, and then add dependency web. That's it. And then click on generate. It will give you the sample project. Okay, but now before we really generate it, let's look at these things because it will have some impact in the project which is generated. So we need to know these things now. Okay, there you go. Again, if you go to this roadmap.sh, if you go to Maven, just see Maven, get started. Okay, and now what it is? Okay, let's say artifact. So I'm just searching here for Control F, artifact. Okay, just here. I went to roadmap.sh, reached to Maven. Now there they have explained all of these fields on how Maven processes it. So if you really look at this initializer, there are two major things which you should care about. What is the group? What is the artifact? Or whatever these other things, you can actually read through all of their descriptions here. Okay, what each of those sections is. Okay, now just understand these two things, group ID and artifact ID. Okay, so for example, if we want to use something as the group ID here, okay, what people say, the company which is developing that software, that company name should come as part of this group. Okay, let me give you some quick example. Okay, so group means which company is developing that project. Generally, for example, let's say if Accenture is developing a project. Okay, so what is the website of Accenture? Accenture.com. So what do they put for group ID is they put reverse of this, nothing but something like that, com.accenture. This becomes the group ID. Okay, if let's say Google is working, so they will put com.google. So reverse of the domain generally people use for group ID purpose. So com dot the company who is developing the software. Okay, so always the first preference will be, let's say if Accenture is developing the company for some client, so first Accenture would like to use its own name, like com.accenture. So it will mean all the projects which are developed by Accenture will have something like this naming. Sometimes the client might say, okay, why we want to put our name here rather than the developer company name, because if the client is a technical company itself, They will say, okay, use our name because we are also a technology company. So in that case, maybe you can go ahead with the client name. But otherwise, the people who develop the project, you put that name here as part of the group ID. So whatever is going to be the website domain, this is a standard practice which people are following. Reverse of that, you put in the group ID. So if you go here, you just fill up com dot, let's say, my company, whichever is that company. Okay. Now comes the second one, artifact. These two are important things. Okay. Now what is an artifact? This element indicates the unique base name of the primary artifact being generated by this project. Just terminologies here and there. Okay. But what it means, the primary artifact which is generated, that primary artifact is nothing but this. So whatever you do, if you run a Maven package, finally something is getting generated. What name do you want to give to this? This becomes your project name or service name in microservice terminology. So in your project, if you have 3 services, service 1, service 2, service 3, then your artifact name for each of them will be service 1, service 2, and then service 3. So let's say if you want to make our final artifact as myapp.jar, here I would prefer my artifact to be my app. That's how it is. So what is going to be the name of your project? And after you build it, what output will be generated? What do you want that name to be? You can actually choose that name here. So in microservice world, the name of the microservice will be used in artifacts. Group is going to be the company in reverse. This is how it is. Okay, that's it. So here you can say project name, or the finally whatever artifact is going to be generated, the output of this project after you do a Maven package, that name is nothing but artifact, and then group is this. And then based upon group and artifact, automatically some package structure it is creating, which is group ID dot artifact. As simple as that. So something predefined. And because this becomes your Java packages, we know that while we work in Java, we need to have some package structure. So if you have this package structure, it actually means, okay, this company, mycomp.comp, is building this service or this project like my app, and all of the code will be there inside this location. As simple as that. So clarity aa jata hai. There is a reason why the packages have to be in a certain manner. Okay, so and this group ID and artifact helps to build that. Okay, guys, is this clear? Give a quick yes in the chat if this is clear. Okay, in between video might be a bit syncing here and there, guys. Okay, but I think after some time it will reflect it back. Okay. Fine, very nice, clear. Okay, it's simple hota hai, guys. Fill kar diye data and now the next thing is click on generate button, and let's see now what comes out as part of that. Okay, so I'm going here, as everybody look. Okay, it's going to get interesting. So as soon as you click here, full details filled, you have chosen web, you have chosen everything compatible. Now you're clicking on generate. Okay, just see, it generated a project code and is available as part of our download sheet now. myapp.zip. A basic project is generated. We will unzip this and see what code is generated. But yeah, this is how you do your first step. If you want to build a Spring Boot application, go here, fill up the data, and as a full result of that, click on generate. And it will give you, let's say, we said even the project name is my app. So it gave us that itself as the project name. It gave us the ready-made project code. Okay, fine, very good. Now next thing is project aa gaya. We need to put this project inside IDE. Okay, let's see if you are using whatever other IDE. So try to explore if you can do all these things in that IDE, well and fine. For my demonstration in this call, we will be using STS, which is given by Spring Team. Okay. Now the thing is, we will use some IDE. Our next approach, just think common sense, guys. We have a project. Generate karne pe, we got some project like my app.zip. Our next approach is unzip this, and somehow this project needs to be taken into IDE, and then we will try to execute it. As simple as that. So we need an IDE, we will launch it, and then we will get further. Okay. Now the thing is, guys, there is this spring.io. If you see this start.spring.io, so everything is hosted on spring.io. If I go here, spring.io/tools, okay, spring.io/tools, it is providing all these IDs, Visual Studio Code, next for Eclipse, STS for Eclipse, for some version, okay, and then for some other IDs also. One of the common one in the Java world people uses Eclipse. You can go somewhere else, you can find your own comfort level ID, but with that then try to experiment to do all of these things, whatever we are doing with this. Anything is fine. For projects it becomes a developer choice which one to use, but generally in my full experience what I have always seen is people prefer using one ID among the entire team. The reason being, if your team member is facing problem, or if you are facing problem, if you want some support from other members, if they both use the same ID, then people can easily learn, debug, and help you out. That is where what I realize is the entire team chooses one ID, whichever it is, okay, after agreeing. So, but yes, it's your individual choice. If you still say to the team, no, I want to use my own ID because I am really good and comfortable with that, then people will be like, okay, no problem, go ahead. But just know that if you're stuck somewhere, others will find it hard to help you out with that thing. So this is how people make decisions in the company. So you can come here, spring.io.tools. From there you can download it, and I already have it in my machine. I will just launch it. Okay, it will look something like this: Spring Tool Suite. Okay, थोड़ा सा let's try to be organized, guys. Okay, what does this mean? I would highly recommend everybody, while working with IDE, maybe in your D drive, create a folder called as my workspace or somewhere, and put all your project related things under that. One way of being organized. So I have already created some reference folder, D drive March 24 CT workspace. So under D drive, I just created. So you also create something like workspace in your, while you're working on our projects, we will be doing microservices and other things. That is also going to have some project folder which you need to set up at your side. So just choose one folder structure there and then click launch. Okay, so blank lagayenge and then we will click launch. So you can choose whatever name you want to give, but put it under D drive or some accessible folder. Name should have something called as workspace. So it really makes it easy to understand it's project code there. Okay, fine. Now clicking on launch. Okay, let it come up. So we are trying to launch an IDE. So you choose a workspace for that. Let it come up. Fine. This is how it will look like. Okay, this is how your entire project is going to look like. Now our next step is, we have already generated some project code which is available as a zip file. We need to include that in this IDE. Our next step is include the generated project into IDE. How do you do that? Simple. First, I will go to this location which is there in my machine. Okay, let's say this is the location. Right now we have imported this my app.zip. I am taking this, moving it here. Okay. Next, extract it. Yes, to this folder, I'm extracting that zip. And let's delete the zip file. Okay, now next, it is providing 2 times folder. So I will just take this all and copy it as part of this, just trying to organize it. Okay, I just took everything to the parent. Zip mein zip chala gaya, that's why. So yeah, this is how it is. So I unzip that project, and inside that, this was the source code available. Dekho guys, it gave some source code also when we did a generate there. Okay, fine, very good. So now, what is this code and all? We will look at that. But now the code is generated. Now our next approach is we need to include this project into an IDE. Okay. Now we already know that this project is a Maven project with having all the Maven dependencies. Now we can simply include this by using IDE feature import. Okay. So we can simply go here in IDE and just do like this. Okay. Right click or your file and import. Let's go that. Dekho, even though we are starting a new project, but it is already created. So we use the term called as existing Maven project. We know that it is a Maven project because that's what we created it. So we simply go to IDE and say import file/import. Then this kind of pop-up comes up. There we have to choose existing Maven project. The naming itself is pretty clear because it is existing in nature, already there, and it's a Maven project. So we are trying to import this. Okay, fine. Now I'm saying existing Maven project. Next, choose that location where that project is and give enter. Okay. Now, just understand this one thing. Maven, we are saying it manages dependencies, it does this, it does that. Internally, all the configurations of Maven will be available in one file called as pom.xml. This is the key file available. Okay, so all Maven configurations would be available in the file called as pom.xml. We can simply import it from here, pom.xml, and just do finish. So once done, you have to check this thing and do finish. Let's see. It's saying importing Maven project here. Okay. Let it take some time to import it. Let's give a few seconds. Meanwhile, by the time this importing is happening, we are still trying to do here. We have already built this dependency there. We have about to write some code, and this web application came as a my app.zip file. And now we are importing this into project so that we can further build it and execute it. Okay, that's what we are trying to do. Let's give a minute. Okay. Meanwhile, it is coming up. Let's talk about this thing. Okay. By the time this setup is happening, our next steps will be something like this, guys. We import it into IDE. Then we will think on how to execute this. We already know that Tomcat is going to come inside. Okay. We already know that Tomcat would be coming inside. Okay. Now, as part of that embedded Tomcat, it is available. We need to think, how do we execute? Okay. Now, guys, just think here. If it is executing, you need to understand two things, like how to access it, right? Once it executes, let's say it's any website. Once any website is running in the production system, like How do you access it? How do you access it? Let's think about this. Okay, the code is imported here. We'll come back to it. But just try to understand here. Next step is we need to execute. After that, we need to access. The way we access any other site, right? We can use some client like browser for example purpose. There are some other clients also which we will discuss. But now in browser, we need to somehow access this application which we created. That's our next steps. So first we import, then we execute it, and then we access it, let's say using browser. These are our next steps. Okay. Now, point is, let's say we got the project here. My app, by default, IDE is seeing it is a boot application. If you open this code, just see it has organized everything. Few things to focus here. We did not create any of that. It is auto-generated code. Let's have a look here. By default, Java 17 is coming here because in start.io we chose 17 there. We chose Maven dependency. That is, we just see all the Maven dependencies are available. Maven is fully there. There go so many jar files. This is built-in code of Spring. Okay, we chose Spring version 3, and then all of a sudden somehow these kind of dependencies are there with us. And just see, we said all the configurations will be available in pom.xml. You can spend some time in reading this pom.xml, and the changes are available here. It looks like an XML, yeah, where you are saying Java version is 17. Next, by default, when you added web, right, from start.spring.io, we added web here. Because of web, it added some kind of configuration in pom.xml called as this. This is a test, so that is fine. But just it added this dependency. Okay, it added this thing. Dependency is Spring Boot starter web. Just know in Maven, the configurations are provided in pom.xml, and whenever you want to add any dependency, you just provide something like this. And these names will have associated jar files with it. You can explore on that using this. Okay, let's click on dependencies. Dependency hierarchy, just check it out. We added only that web starter. Now, when we use this Spring Boot starter web, internally, it has given these all classes, jar files are available. So we added this web and we added this test. Inside, there is a chain of dependencies. All these are jar files. These are all code, right? It's not possible to manually do all these things. We needed something ready-made. Start.spring.io gave us that ready-made capability. Just see, it's pretty complex, but not so nicely simplified. We added only the term web, and all of these jar files are given to us, and it is all there in our class path as Maven dependencies. So awesome. Life is so what simple now. Okay. Now comes the next command. Now we want to work with Maven because we want to execute it. So for executing, we need some basic Maven commands. What you always need to keep doing is there are some commands. You have to keep running it always. Okay, I will explain you why that is also required. Something like mvn Maven clean. It's like every time before you start doing something, delete all the existing and start from scratch. So that is the power with clean. If you don't do clean, sometimes old code will also be coming. So always make it a nice discipline to start with like clean. Okay, what exactly clean? We will look at that. But yes, Maven clean. Before that, if anything is generated, it deletes it and starts fresh. So you will be more confident about the final copy. So few commands you need to be aware. Maven clean, Maven install, Maven package, Maven Spring Boot run. That's it. These are some of the Maven commands which will do a lot of activities for you. Okay. For example, Maven clean, it cleans the existing whatever temporary files which are created. For example, if you run this command, Maven package, it generates the required archive file, the jar file for you. Okay. If you do a Maven clean, it will delete all those pre-existing files. We will have a look through that. But just have a look here. Okay. These code will generate something for compilation. So when you do clean, it cleans it and freshly starts it. So you just need to know these basic commands. Maven clean, Maven install. Install is whatever dependency you add. Let's say if you add any new dependency. If you use Maven install, for example, here in the pom.xml, you add any new dependency. In future, let's say as part of coming week, we will add some more dependencies here. Whenever you add a new dependency here, we have to go to internet, from there copy some dependency, add it here, and if you want it into your project, you have to do this mvn install. So then corresponding jar file will come into your IDE. Okay, so that's how you do nvm install, because it's not there with you right now. So you have to add pom.xml configuration and then run the Maven install. You should be connected to internet, so it will go fetch it from that internet, put it into your local machine, and then add to the class path. This is how the jars are managed. You don't have to explicitly search and do it. You just need to add a dependency configuration like this. Read something about Maven, maybe 20 minutes YouTube video about quick Maven summary. So, but yeah, this is how it is. You don't search for jars one by one. You add the dependency in pom.xml and just run something like Maven install. It will go find it from net, add it into your local machine, and put it into your project class path. So it will take care of that. Next, package. If you do this package, it compiles all the existing Java code which you have written and then bundles it together and creates a jar file with that. Okay. And next, if you want to run your SpringBoot application, there is this kind of a Maven command called as spring-boot:run. Okay. There are other ways of running also, but first let's try to execute these commands. How to execute it? I will show you the IDE way of executing. Okay. Otherwise, if you have Maven, when you install IDE, Java 17 is coming by default. Maven is coming by default inside IDE. That is where you were able to do file import using Maven. So Maven dependencies are also available in your IDE. If you want to run these commands from, let's say, your command prompt, CMD, you can do that also. But in that case, you need to have Maven set up in your machine, and from there you do it. Like, since we are using IDE, so we can run these things from IDE itself. Now, how do you run it from IDE? So how to execute these commands from IDE? Yes, this might be basic for a few of the members, but yeah, it's good to clear with the basics so that we are on the same page. So because taking reference of this, we will talk about further building the project and application. So that common understanding has to be there between what I am saying, what you are thinking, your understanding, my understanding. We have to come on common page. So that is where we start with the base, and then we build on top of that towards complex stuff. Okay, otherwise it will be like, what's happening? Complex stuff will not be clear if the basics are, we are not on the same page there. Okay, fine. Now, how do we run this in an IDE? Simple stuff, guys. You just need to do something like this. Right click on your project. Next, there is something called as run as. Just see, these ready-made options are also there. Maven install, we said Maven install command is there. Maven clean command is there. But if you want to type your own commands, you can actually do it via this. Maven build, and then 3 dots are here. So right click, run as, Maven build with 3 dots. You click here. And in this goal, you can write these commands. So how do you run it is, right click project. Next, run as. Now you might be like, why we are going that basic? Because some of the guys in the call might not have used IDE also, because in core Java and advanced Java, sometimes people don't really get into this. Okay, and yeah, we want to really cover all the dimensions here so that anybody from start can be on the page. So right click project. run as. You can choose Maven build with 3 dots, 1, 2, 3. It will give a pop-up. And inside that, in the goal section, you need to write these commands. But there is one difference. Okay, when you're specifying things in this goal section, you don't use this mvn in the beginning. You straight away write these commands. If you are executing it from here you will write mvn clean. So Maven has to be installed with you first. It has to be there in your path variable. Then you can execute this. But same thing, if you want to do inside your IDE, you just type here clean. MVN keywords are not required. Okay, fine. I'm just doing clean and I'm doing run. Okay, let's see. It opens this console and what it is saying, build is successful. That's it. We ran some command, it executed it. क्या किया, कुछ भी नहीं, clean. Right click, run as, Maven build, we did clean, and then run. Automatically look it in the console, it executed it and it's saying okay, build success. One command we executed. Okay, like this. For adding any dependencies, we will simply do right click, run as, build. Inside here you type install. You will automatically get the dependencies if it is not with you. Okay. Okay, it's even running the test cases and all. Okay, it's building. It's basically first installs the dependency and further it's going ahead with build activity also. But install is generally for installing the dependencies. Okay, anything new freshly it will get and further it is going ahead building also. Or now the third thing comes in, guys. Okay, using package. And the other thing is you can combine these two commands together. So my recommendation will always be, if you are trying to build something new, always write like this command, mvn clean package. You can mix this and this together. So let's say if you want the output jar, so you can use this clean package together. So it will first delete the old one and then it will create a new one. Okay, so first we will see what exactly that means, but let's type this. Right click, run as. Is basically a way of compiling and building. That's where it is called as a build tool. Okay, so clean, put it here. So we are saying clean and package. If you remove clean, then also it will work. But you have to then run the two commands. First, let's look at it like this. I'm just using package. Run. Just observe what this guy is doing here. Okay, internally it is running the test classes. And just see, replacing main artifact. Okay, which is this one. So it has really created this. Okay, so when we did a package, it actually created this kind of a jar, which is representing the entire code, whatever we have. Now, what is in that code, we will see. But it created it, okay? It repackaged. So it packaged something. Using some internally jar command, it created it. Okay, now let's use something like this. Right click, run as, SpringBoot, clean package, run. So first just see it is doing clean. Okay, we will have a look here. So when you do like this clean package, first what it is doing, it is cleaning the existing things. Cleaning is nothing but deleting. So it deletes. By default, whenever you work with Maven, in the current project, it creates a target folder. Inside that, it is putting all this jar file and everything, the output of the Maven commands. Okay, in the target folder, it is putting it. So if you really look at here, this was our project. Dekho, by default, inside target, all this is generated code. So when you do Maven clean, basically this code goes away. So it deletes all of these things. Just see the final jar file. So we said, okay, we will be generating this final jar file. So it is generated here and is available in the target folder. If you do Maven clean, this goes away. And then it starts executing one by one. Okay, can we do this thing in parallel? I'll just show it like this here. Let's look at it. Okay, I'm doing like this. Right click, run as, build, clean, and package. And on the left hand side, we have the target folder. Let's see what exactly this guy does. Dekho, it started with deleting things and now it is regenerating it. So first it cleaned it and now it regenerated. And finally, one by one, the jar file also came. So that is where. So when you are doing these things, you can even check this thing out. First it deletes. Okay. And after that, it is compiling the Java code. You might be like, hey, I did not write it. Predefined code was available. So you compiled that code and then you executed test cases. In the built-in code, it was also available. We'll look at it. And finally, it built jar. Just have a look here. Okay. So this is how sequence of activity happened. So it built jar. So basically, we used a command like this. MVN clean package. First, it deleted existing. After that, it compiled Java classes. And next, it created new jar file. And now it is available inside the target folder. How do we confirm that? Just see building jar, this one. Redrive your location, name of the service, target, and then inside that the jar is available. We can go here, we can verify it from this place also. By that way, using this simple commands, Maven package, we did a clean package something, but we got this final output. Okay, guys, is it clear? Okay, is it clear? Just quickly confirm. Okay. Nice. Okay, super. Now look guys, now comes the question, how do you start Spring Boot application? ये तो हो गया building. This will be required when we deploy it in on AWS. Okay, let me just do this. So we build it, we got a jar file. Now comes how do you execute it? How do you run it? Execute it. For that, this command is there. Okay, you do a clean and then do like this. Clean Spring Boot run. Okay, clean Spring Boot run. Just if you do like this, we will be able to execute it. Fine, this is how you execute. Okay, how to use the jar file, we will look at that. In AWS, we will be needing that. But in your local machine, so next question, how do you execute it in local machine? One of the command is simple, using like this. So now let's try to do that. Right click, run as, Maven build, clean, Spring Boot, run. If you don't want the test cases to run, there is some option available here, skip test. If you want it to run, let it run. So let's see what actually happens. Now we are trying to guys execute it. We have not even seen what code came to us, but we are able to just without touching the code, get it, set up and use it also. Okay, fine. Now I'm trying to just execute it, run. Let's check this thing out. Okay, let's see, clean kiya tha, so it is cleaning. Let's have a look here. So first it delete, copy, it is compiling the new code, and after that it started executing. Okay, just hold on. Okay, just see here, Spring Boot version 3.2. 3. We did this command, springboot : run. Because of this run capability, the Spring application came up. It is showing something like this. Spring Boot is actually running. How do we know it's running? First of all, just see here. Here, this option is showing terminate. That means currently it is active. Okay, here the option on the right hand side is showing terminate. That means currently this is active. And if you really see here, okay, this is an active window. If you can check this thing out here, these are some logs which is generated. And just see, in the logs it is saying Tomcat started on port 8080. That means what we said. Dekho, Tomcat initialized with 8080. Starting service Tomcat. We already said, okay, embedded Tomcat is there. By default in Spring itself, there is Tomcat available. We don't have to do anything. We only did what? Run as Spring Boot. We simply did Spring Boot -run. Clean Spring Boot run. It first cleaned it, it compiled it, and now it is trying to bring it up as well. I think there was a question in some other ID we are not able to find run. Simply go to ChatGPT, say, okay, how to execute a Spring Boot application in whatever editor you have. It will give you all the ideas. It will say, yeah, this is the way of doing it. Maybe some other way, terminal or console will be available where you can type all those commands what we have demonstrated right now. Okay? So, but every IDE will give some way of doing it. But just understand these few things. Abhi thoda sa guys interesting hote chalega. Okay, server is up. You can see it here. And it is running on port 8080. Tomcat started on this port. Okay, let's understand this statement here. Guys, thoda sa focus here. When we ran like this, clean and this, the web application came up and it's running on 8080 port. Please understand, this is basic. Any software, when it is running in your system, it always occupies some port. Any software always occupies some port. 8080 is the default port for Spring Boot. Default port for Spring Boot. As simple as that. So I have not done any code modification. We have only executed it. We did not even touch anything. By default, we are able to see it in the logs. Okay, Tomcat started on 8080. Okay. Now please understand this. We said our next steps will be first how to execute. We are able to execute. Now comes the question, how do you access it? We are able to execute. Now comes the question, how do you access it? We need to access it from browser. Okay. Now let me ask this question to you guys in, maybe you can put the answer in chat. Like, okay, in browser, I want to access this application, which is running on 8080 port. What should be my browser URL? Somebody, can you just type it here in the Q&A section? What should be the browser URL? In my browser, I want to access this Spring Boot application. Okay, I think 40% of you said you already work with Spring Boot. Remaining said, okay, you are not hands-on. But I think this knowledge is something which everyone will have. Remaining 10-20%, yeah, for new, let's see what other guys say. Okay, so how do I access it, guys? Put it in this Q&A section. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, very good. All the answers are here. Okay, so the answer is HTTP. Like almost all the members are correct. Okay, almost everybody is correct, right? So Aftab, let's take it up. Okay, HTTPS nahi, we don't have the secure protocol, so we want to use something like HTTP currently. We don't have a SSL certificate, so we need to have the HTTP because we don't have certificate. And then local host 8080. Let's try to dissect it first. Okay, so I'm going here. and launching. Okay, now just try to see. Okay, something came up. It's not a broken site. For example, if I access like this 8081 port, it's not going anywhere. Okay, it's a broken page. That means there is nothing running on 8081. That's where it is broken. But if you access 8080, it is showing something. That means the application is up and running. This itself means the SpringBoot application which we started on port 8080 is actually up and it is able to serve traffic. Okay, let's try to understand. There are few things which we need to understand here. Okay, so one is, let's break down this URL. You specify your protocol. Okay, you specify your protocol HTTP, by that we are connecting. Next, you need to put the IP or identifier of what machine your code is running. What machine or machine IP where code is running. We all know that by default, localhost say we identify the current machine. So we are simply using HTTP machine IP. Instead of IP, we are just pointing it as localhost. Okay. And the second one is on what port it is running. Colon is the syntax, and then you specify the port. On which port is your service running? So any service. So we started our Spring Boot application, which is having embedded Tomcat. So embedded Tomcat is running on port 8080, and this is the syntax of approaching it: machine and then the port. Okay, and localhost is something what we refer to our current machine. If you want to access the same thing via IP, you can simply make it something like this: 127 dot, right? Localhost का एक other IP होता है 127.0.0.1. This is also another way to access the same application. Clicking, go, shoot. It's working. Okay. Now you might be like, why am I getting this error page? Okay, let's make some small modification only for testing purpose. We will not need this in our project, but only for testing purpose. What I will do is, okay, we will go through this Java code mein kya hai and all, but there is something called as resources. Inside that there is a folder called as static. In static, I'm just adding a new file called as index.html and then doing a finish. Okay. Hello. Let me type it here. Hello. This is HTML. Okay. MarCT team. Okay, let's just save it. Okay. Right click, inspect. Okay, so somehow after making the modifications, we added that file. It's not able to read it. I did an inspect. Sometimes browser caches something, so I'm doing empty cache and hard reload. Still it's not coming. So we have to kill this old server. So kill this. By clicking terminate, you kill that server. Then I can execute it once more. Right click, run as Maven clean spring boot :run, and then run. Okay, let it come up first. Okay, let me go here. Tomcat started on 8080. Just see. Okay, we just refreshed it and now a page mil gaya. So a basic of Spring Boot. By default, it will always try when you're accessing this location, nothing. It will always try to go by default to static folder inside that index.html file, and what is available there, it tries to render it. So we are able to see this. Okay, this is straight. Now let's just try to have this view here. Okay, we clicked on this. Okay, inspect, trying to execute. So using this localhost, we are able to access it. Our syntax is IP. So you can find this via some other command also, 127.0.0.1. That also renders this. Okay. Now just understand key, even some commands like maybe .100, will this give 127.0.0.100? Shoot. Yes, that also gives 127.200.0.100. Yeah, it provides. So you need to understand that by default, this is a IP range. They all talk to local machine. So you can put a IP range here. The starting value is this 127.0.0.1. Any value from this IP range till this one 255.255.254. Any IP range in this, it will all be rolling back to the local host and it will be able to pick it up as well. So just basic general knowledge should be available. Okay, yes, the port 127.0.0.1 is the starting of this range. However, till any value you enter till this one 255.255.254, it all belongs as part of that range. 255.255.254, it's all there. It serves. As soon as you change this to, let's say, 255, it's not working anymore. Okay, so please be aware, this is how your local related pointing is going to happen. So how do you access your local machine? One way we saw localhost directly you can access it, or you can find this another way of accessing it. Okay, nice. Now let's try to find the third way. Okay, there is a command called as ipconfig, which gives public IP of your machine. Okay, so if you use this command ipconfig, we are trying to understand something about IPs and how your devices will be identified. So when it is your local machine, it will be accessed via localhost, via this kind of range, or you can even do ipconfig in your command prompt. So I'm going here, typing this ipconfig in my command prompt, enter. A lot of things it provides as details, but just see the IPv4 address. That is something which also talks about your machine IP. So you can take this also 127, okay, 172.17.48.1, and you can take this and you can even put it here, and that is also supposed to work. Let's see how it goes. Yes, it's also working. Okay, so nothing but multiple ways by which you can find the IP. Another one is this way. Okay, by default 8080 is our port, and these multiple ways of IP. Okay, guys, is this clear? Are you guys clear with the IP related? Can you just put it in comment? Yes, the session is being recorded. We will be sharing you the recording version. Actually, it will be available in this editor. I have to download it, upload it in YouTube, and then give it during the day. Sometime we will do this. Okay, simple. So 3 ways by which we found the IP, guys. Okay, 3 ways by which we found the IPs. You call it localhost. Second is it takes this range. It all talks about the local machine. The third way is use your IP config and then use the IPv4 address. Okay, IPv4 address. This IP, whatever it takes, we can even use that and be able to access. something like this, copy, and we are able to access. This also works. Okay, now let's take this next thing. How do you change this port? Okay, for doing that, thoda sa abhi basics of Spring Boot is required. Okay, something about Spring Boot. Dekho, from our code which is generated in the IDE, we have the code. If you just do this Java, just see by default, the group ID and artifactory which we have done based upon that package was chosen. So com.mycompany.myapp came. Inside that, by default, they created one starting point, and this is nothing but the starting point of Spring Boot application. That's it. Just be aware of that. So by default, when start.spring.io say you got the project, they created one file. They annotated with @Spring Boot application, which is having a simple main method, the one which we use, right? Public static void main. So you write that, and then this code, which is written inside that, this basically starts the application. So when you do Spring Boot :run, it basically executes from this place. Okay, fine. This is one way. Now the thing is, just be aware of that. It has given us resources folder. Inside resources, we have already seen by default, if we want index.html to be picked up, in static, we can add that. Our project is going to be API integration project. In coming this week, we will speak about that project. Okay, so API integration. So in that, we don't need static and templates. We will be exposing REST endpoints. What are REST APIs, RESTful web services? We will be working with that. So, but yes, we will not need static area, but we saw. But just see, if you want to provide any configuration information, we can do that in application.property file. Okay. So guys, any configuration information we can provide in application.property file. So for example, default port is 8080. Is 8080. I want to change it to 8081. How do you do it? You simply find some value and set it up here in the application property. Okay, let's say if you don't know, you're new to this, but common sense says, okay, port ho raha hai, so default is something, you should be able to change it. Even if you get that thought, that means you're logically thinking. You should get that thought naturally. Can I change this port? If I create 10 projects, can I run these 10 projects on 10 different ports? Can all the projects run on the same port? It's not going to happen. Now, let's say, for example, let's say you are creating this project. It is already occupying, running on 8080 port. I am again calling this, right click, run as Spring Boot, clean. I'm again running it. Previous application is not down. I'm again running it. Yeah. Let's say the second startup of this application is also trying to occupy 8080 port. Two services trying to run on same. No, it's not going to happen. And what is the reason? Web server failed to start. Port 8080 was already in use. Just see here. So current one is showing in terminated, the other one is active. You can click here and you can differentiate between that. These are consoles. Current one is terminated. We don't see any red bar here. But here, if you go to the other one, my app, just see here, my app. Inside this my app, we see, yes, it is still active. And here it is running on 8080. So the next conclusion which we saw is two services cannot run on same port. Two services cannot run on same port. Now, if they cannot run on the same port, that means if you want to start this service one more time onto a different port, you would need to do that port setting, right? So there has to be a way of changing the port. How do you do that? Go to ChatGPT. Okay, go to ChatGPT and ask, okay, how to change port of my Spring Boot application to 8081. Okay, it is simply saying कि application.property file में put a configuration like this and you will have that power. Okay, fine. Now I take this copy. That's it. Internet is suggesting, ChatGPT is giving us the answer. Simply take it, go here, save it, and save 8081. Okay. Now you try to execute this. Right click, run as SpringBoot, clean SpringBoot run, shoot. Okay, let it come up. Let's see. Now, yes, Tomcat started on port 8081. So simple change. How to change the port? Yes, this is how we can modify it. Server.port 8081 and have it like this. We will be able to change it. If you really look here, both the services are running. That old process is also running on 8080 and we did not kill it. That's where it is like this. If we kill it, that process will also try to start on 8081. Don't think logical, right? And this is running on 8081. That means if I go to the browser now and if I do this, okay, 8080, the old service is working. And if I do this 8081, both are working right now. That means two services cannot run on the same port. It fails. The solution is you can change the port and then start, or you can kill the old service and then you start. So please be aware of this. Okay, two services cannot run on same port. Either you start it on another port or you kill existing service and start new service on that port. Okay, now comes the question. Fine, let me do this one thing. I'm killing this both. Don't go. Okay, next I'm doing this. Right click. Let's say some of you guys will get stuck with this. Let's say right click, SpringBoot, clean, SpringBoot run, running. So 8081 should come as the port for this service. Yes, 8081 is coming. Now let's say accidentally you try to start another one and clean SpringBoot. It should fail because existing is already running. You execute this one. And yes, the second one is failing because it is already running. What it says, identify and stop the process that is listening on 8081. So second service it is not able to do it. Now automatically guys, have some thinking brain. You should already be like, array, how do I find which service has occupied this 8081 so that I want to kill that service so that I can run my new service. So it is saying identify and stop. This is what is the suggestion given by the Spring system. Identify and stop the process that is listening on 8081 or configure this application to listen on another port. Earlier we saw how to change. Now how do we identify and stop? Okay, so now let's put this again in ChatGPT. You don't need to really know stuff. You can think, you can go to internet for that. Okay, I'm copying this and ask ChatGPT as it is. Okay, let's say ChatGPT, a new chat. Okay, in Windows machine, in command prompt, how to find this and kill it. We don't need to know. We need to have a thinking brain so that we can use internet to find it out. Okay, now देखो थोड़े command दे दिया इसने. It says, okay, find the process using this kind of command. Okay, let's go here, 8081. And I'm going here in the command prompt, and I'm just pasting here. Let's say, okay, somehow internally it is saying, okay, this process ID is running and occupying this port 2672. And currently just see, okay, this is the currently active one. Okay, this is the currently active one. Now, point is, I just need to stop this. Just see, have a look here, guys. 2672. 2672. Somehow the commands are so nice. It actually talks about where they go with process ID. So we are starting with Java 17 with PID, process ID 2672. Using this kind of a command, we got that from the same thing. You don't need to, I'm just showing how to debug things. Next, ChatGPT already suggested us how to kill it also. What it says, identify the process ID. Yes, we know the process ID. It is 2672. It says, okay, stop the process using some command like this. And it is giving example of how to use. Fine, let's take this. Okay, so our command will be space 2672. So use internet to solve your problems. 2672, copy and then go here and then simply paste it. And the process has been terminated successfully. Go back here to the IDE and what? Just see, the process is terminated. You can see here, and both are in terminated state. That's what, when you face a problem, go to internet and work towards the solution. Your mind is very creative. You can find solution. We killed it. Now we killed the old process. Happy. Now this one was saying, okay, the port was already occupied. You either stop it. So yes, we stopped it. Now we want to restart this one. So again, you can go right click, run as spring build. Okay. And then clean spring boot :run. Now execute. Now it is supposed to come up. Okay, nice. Now it has occupied. By this way, you debug the problem by thinking and using internet. Okay, so guys, is this clear? Is this clear, team? Search, find your own problem. Just comment the yes in chat. Okay, glitches in voice. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think maybe tomorrow we will give this recording. Maybe this webinar is also having some hiccups. I guess tomorrow we will try if back to Google Meet, because the current strength is also like, I think Google Meet can really support these things properly. Maybe 500, 600 members. Google Meet is very stable. We have been taking on that. Yesterday was 1,000. So we took this bigger wala package. But I think for some of the members, it is coming. For some members, too glitchy. Okay, let's see. Tomorrow we will be then trying to switch back. But you guys, okay, some of you have confirmed. Okay, I think, but yeah, it's breaking here and there for some of the guys. Okay, but don't worry, all these things we will work on this when we are working on project every single day. Okay, okay, fine. So chalo. Okay. Yeah, the app allows to comment. Hey, yesterday that was a drama, right? When there are 1,000 people, I'm trying to turn the some operation on Google Meet, and it was like nothing is happening. Reaction on off was problem. Comment on off is problem. So we will try to get back to that state. We give an experiment tomorrow, but don't worry, guys. Focus on learning. All these technical things will be sorted. With I think 500, 600 members, it will be stable tomorrow. Okay, so we will again get back there. I will give you the link in the group. Okay, fine. Let's come back here. So far we saw this. We still have few minutes, guys. Still some demonstration needs to be seen. Hold on. Okay. Locally to abhi chal gaya. Now the next thing. How do you, we are able to build an application. Okay. We are able to run it locally. We are able to change the port. Now comes the last demonstration of today. You are not going to run this application. Let's say this is a full website. Currently we are seeing only let's say this statement, but let's say this is a fully functional application here. We will write code for that when we work through. We want to deploy it and give it to the real world. That's our next target. How do you deploy and give to the real world? Right? How do you do that? Deploy and give it to the real world. Now that is where it is becoming interesting. How can we really make this happen? Okay. Now, the thing is, we need to have some infrastructure. Generally, people in the current time is preferring cloud infrastructure. Dekho guys, as part of your practice for today, you should do what we have done till now. Rest everything, I'm just giving it for some heads up. Okay, what it is supposed to happen. And in future sessions, we will show how to set up AWS and other thing. But yes, cloud infrastructure. Let's say, for example, we will use AWS. I'll not get into much details and explain you about infrastructure. We'll just execute it. Okay, what is required? Just have a look here, guys. Kind of launching AWS. So in AWS, you have something called as AWS console, this URL. Sign in to console. You would have to create, it provides with a free tier of 1 year. So for experimenting, you can create that. And whenever work is not there, you can kill those machines so that your cost will be saved. I used it for a few months and monthly around 10 rupees, 20 rupees, something billing was coming. But if you say you are student, they might even ignore that amount from you also. So I think for testing free purpose, you can use AWS, free tier wala. Okay. Now in AWS, we will deploy this project as part of one of the service called as EC2 service. Okay. So myjar, we have this. We need to deploy this in AWS EC2 service. So in our project also, we will do like this. Okay, fine. So EC2 is one of a service where you can do software executions, application code. I'm just starting it. Okay, I already have something. Don't get into details what is it, but just assume in AWS cloud, there is a EC2 machine, which is having RAM, cores and all that. I'm starting one of the service there. Okay. So our next step, what we are trying to do is, how do you deploy and give it to the real world application? So we go here. So deploy it in AWS. So first step is in AWS, start EC2 or set up EC2 machine. Set up and start EC2 machine. Okay. Second step is do deployment in EC2. What does this mean? The local jar file, let's say myjar, myapp.jar. This you have in your local. You need to copy this to AWS. We need to do this thing. From local, we take it and we copy it to AWS. So for doing this, we need some software. So that is where we are going to use some software called as Mobaxterm for Windows users. If you are using Mac or Ubuntu, using terminal itself, you can do it. Mac and Windows user, using terminal itself, you can do it. But sorry, Mac and Ubuntu users, you will have some terminal with that. If you are a Windows user, I would prefer a software called as Mobaxterm. I will give you the links of all these things, like from where to download. We have shared it earlier. But using the software, we can run commands to first connect to AWS EC2 machine and then copy this one. Okay, how to do that? Let's have a quick demonstration. So first of all, yes, our machine is up and running. Okay, in order to connect to this machine, we need to know the machine IP. This is our IP. So fine, I'm taking the machine IP. Let's say I've just pasted the basic commands here. Now I'm putting, okay, you can connect to this machine using some command like this. SSH is the command. So what are you supposed to do, guys? Just launch Mobaxterm. Okay, this is how Mobaxterm shortcut is going to look like. So I'm launching Mobaxterm. This is how it comes up. Launch. Now, in order to connect to this EC2 machine, I'm using these all things we will be getting in details in future. Right now, let's look at an end-to-end closure. Okay, we will connect to it using SSH command. The syntax of SSH is something like this. SSH, some secured key for connection. So we put that key as part of -i. Next, to connect to the machine, you say which user and at what IP. So kind of this key works like security password, and then what your OS user and which IP. So if you use this command SSH, you can actually connect to that machine. I'm pasting it here. Let's see. Just see, we are in AWS. Okay, guys, we are in AWS. This is not local anymore. EC2 user, and this is the IP of the AWS environment. We are in AWS, Amazon Linux 2. On, what is the path here? home/EC2. You need to now know basics of Linux commands. Knowledge will be required. Basics Linux command knowledge will be required. Okay, now we need to do the second thing. Copy the jar to this place. Okay, so here I'm becoming a root user. Just a demonstration. You're not supposed to do all this thing tomorrow. We will talk about it later. But I wanted to give an end-to-end feel how it goes to AWS and accessible from there also. So point is, next step is from local, we need to copy it there. And from local to copy to AWS, we have some command called as SCP. You can again use this in Mobaxterm, SCP. So from local, where the code is available. So we know that, okay, I'm trying to build it again. So you have to first build it, right click this, clean, package, and let it happen. This package is going to give us a jar file. We will be stopping the call in maximum 10 minutes from now, maximum. Okay. So 12:15 we will be definitely done. This is the last demonstration, but it really closes the entire deal. Okay. So there you go. It is building the jar. So let's take this latest jar, which is inside target. In our local, we have to go to this folder in Mobaxterm. Okay, let's just have a look here. It takes 2/1 syntax, so I'm replacing it. But here, basically, we are just going into that folder in local machine. CD space that folder. LL command. Kind of, you can see the list of files, the way dir is there, basics, right? So we can see here date 1203, so it is created. Okay, next. We need to copy this jar file, which is in target, into this environment. How do we do that? Okay, for that we need to know SCP command. Okay, so using this one, SCP command works like source and destination. SCP source and destination. So I'm putting something like this. SCP again, they go first -i. It is available here. -i. It talks about the security key, and then we need to specify which file you want to copy. So in our case, our jar file name here is myapp, this one. So I just typed it. Where do we want to put it? EC2 machine on this 43205, and which is our AWS machine right now, 43205.240.11. So yes, and then on this location. So it's done. I'm just doing an enter. So using this SCP, it started copying the jar file from your local machine to AWS. Let's go here and see. My app is available here, jar file. Okay, let's give some execute permissions. Chmod 777, my app, this. Okay, given. Now the next thing is we need to start the service here. This is how people will do the deployment in dev environment, sometimes manually. You need to know manual, otherwise Jenkins and all will be there, but let's understand how manually it happens. Okay, now next is we need to execute this command. Okay, So our jar file name is this. We need to execute it. Like, just see, this is the command for that. Simple. How do you execute a jar file? We already know that. Okay. Java space -jar and give the file.jar name. This is the same command. Okay. This is the same command. NoHub just runs that command as a background. So if you really see here, okay, first we will execute this and then we will try to break down this command into details. I'm just executing this command. Tail -f first spring hyphen log file. Okay, let's see what we did. Let's understand this command here. We typed a command like this in our AWS console. If you really see the syntax, it is broken down into one, this. NoHub runs this command as a background process. And this is the syntax of NoHub. In the end, ampersand should be there and starting should like this. Whatever is written inside that, it will run as a background process. That's it. Next, we already know how to run an executable jar file. The command is java space -jar and then you provide the file name. The thing is, while starting Java, you can specify min parameter and max parameter. So we are just trying to give some memory to your Java application, minimum how much, maximum how much, so that we can test it. Some numbers. And this arrow basically says whatever you have written, it should be written to which log file. So we gave some log file name. That's it. So that is where when we started this, actually our process started. And that is what I just tailed this, saying tail this log file. And we are able to see this key on Tomcat started on port 8081. Okay, this is what it is already showing. Tomcat started on 8081. Now the thing is, we want to access this from our web. How do you do that? Again, simple. In order to access any service, you need to connect to the IP, connect to the port. So you can go here, you can take this IP, whatever is mentioned here, just simply go here, paste that IP, and then 8081 and hit it. Just see, in AWS now it is running and we are able to see that as well. Okay, so we are running in AWS and we are able to see that as well. Now this is how we will be doing deployment. There is furthermore demonstration. Okay, when we access websites, we don't see the ports, how that happens. We will be checking up on that as part of upcoming sessions. Okay, so guys, this is what where we are today right now. And okay, let me stop my screen share. Stop sharing. Okay. Now guys, the point is I will share a quick attendance to you guys for all the members who are available right now in the call. You just mark your attendance here. Yes, I think because of some video or network, some of the members were dropping over time, but at least you guys are available till the end. So I'm just giving you this attendance form. Okay. So just mark this attendance here and then we will be closing the call. Okay, just a second. Okay, I'm pasting you the attendance link in the chat. Okay, copy, come back here. Please mark your attendance and then we will close the day. Okay, there will be attendance code. So let's make the code for today is 4444 and here is the link. Okay, guys, please mark your attendance here. Okay guys, okay, I think yes, connectivity mein kuch problem ho raha tha. No problem, we will be further tomorrow trying to go back to our Google Meet. I think it was at least running stably. The strength is less, so we can run it efficiently as part of that. And these things, whatever was breaking, we will have the clarity while we are further discussing. So don't worry, these are not one-time things. We have to do this every single day for working upon the project. Okay, so just please mark your attendance there, and thanks for your patience. Okay, please mark your attendance here, guys. In the chat, I'm pasting it. Code is 4444. It's there in the chat. You can just directly click on that link. Paste it, guys. It's there. Broadcast to all. You can take it up from there. Yes, code is 4444. Okay. Just put how much you understood the today's session from a scale of 1 to 5 and some of the key things which you learned from the session today. Okay. And tomorrow we will meet at again 10. Maybe back on Google Meet or something. I will again check. It was experimental. Without we actually do it together. So we worked for 500 members. Google Meet was doing good. Yesterday the load was more, so it was causing problems. So we set up another webinar to experiment. Looks like with this also there is some struggle. So we will go back to Google Meet, a much more stable one there. So already for 500 members it works through. So whatever points today we missed, we will have a demonstration quickly again about that in the upcoming sessions. No problem. Okay. Chalo. Okay. Chalo guys, chalo mark your. Yes, the internship will happen daily at 10 a.m. only. Okay, 10 to 12. Okay, don't worry guys. AWS demonstration in further coming sessions, I will explain how to set up EC2 machine. All that we are going to see. Today I just showed you how end-to-end field works like. Okay, attendance link, somebody is facing problem. I will share it in our WhatsApp group also. There you can mark your attendance. I will give it in the WhatsApp group. Okay, let me paste it right now itself. Guys, I'm pasting it into WhatsApp group. Attendance code for today is 4444 and here is the link. Okay, just a second. I'm pasting the link. Already 200 members have marked their attendance. I can see it in the Google form, but rest of the members you can pick it up from here. And yes, paint me whatever we did, the session notes, I will be uploading it in our common location and give you access to that Google Drive also. Okay, so we will be doing that. Chalo guys. Okay guys, chalo, thank you for your time and thank you for your patience. I can understand like network and all could get really problematic. But yes, tomorrow we will have a better one. Okay, so thanks for your patience, team. Okay, have a nice day everybody. Take care of yourself. Good day, and please execute what we discussed today. I will create a video of this, download it, set it up in YouTube, share the link back again. Okay, chalo, thank you everybody for your time and see you guys tomorrow morning. Chalo, thank you all. Take care of yourself. Bye bye. Thank you everybody.